What's up, tubers? Tio here, Simplistic Fishing, back at you tonight to continue our lake breakdown series of Kerr Lake. I think actually in this video at the very beginning, I call it Kerr again. I just can't seem to get it out of my head. Kerr is the way it looks to me when I read it, but it's actually Kerr. And if you're still trying to figure out what the heck lake I'm talking about, it's Bugs Island. We're talking out in North Carolina and Virginia. We're going to continue that breakdown. We're down in that Steel Creek area, starting around that Henderson boat ramp, I believe it is. And we're basically going to work our way south, see what we can find from an offshore perspective, and hopefully help put you guys on some fish. Let's go. Let's go ahead and jump in here to Kerr Lake, or what's also known as Bugs Island. Again, if you missed those other videos, just go back there and take a look at those Break Lake Down playlists. But let's go ahead and start here. Steel Creek, we've gone through the Google Earth stuff, right? We've gone through everything. Now it's time to talk about the offshore stuff. I'm trying a little bit different image here with my Navionics boating app. I've been kind of playing around with it. I feel like it does a little bit better for my eyes and really being able to pinpoint like good places to go fish. So I'm gonna give it a try on this video. You guys let me know what you think. Do you like the way the contours look on this, or did you like it better the old way that we did it? So remember, we had that marina that was over here. It was like the High Point Marina or something like that. I can't remember the name of the marina now, but it was right over, Henderson boat ramp was right over here. We're gonna start to the east of that, and we're going to work our way all the way down talking about offshore stuff. So what we're looking for here are high percentage areas where it looks like fish would collect, or high percentage areas for the fish to be. Now, obviously on a reservoir this big, this thing's giant. I'm not going to be able to pinpoint every single offshore hotspot that's on this lake. I also don't have really any kind of sonar equipment that I'm going out and using on these lakes that's going to put me on the brush piles and stuff like that. But I can tell you, based on my experience in fishing over the years, usually if the point looks like a good fishing point, someone has typically dropped something on those points. Not all of them, but a lot of them, especially here in Texas especially. But now that we're talking out here in North Carolina and Virginia, I'm sure you guys are the same exact way. We're all diehard fishermen. We love to put those brush piles out there. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start right here, and right here off of this point, you're going to notice, and again, this is that Henderson boat ramp is right over here. Let me switch this over real quick and see. Actually, no, that's going to jack us up, so we're not going to do that. But anyways, you can see right here, this is basically the state line, right? So the state line is right here. Here's Virginia, here's North Carolina. I'm starting right below the state line. Maybe that'll be easier. So this is the major point on the state line. We actually talked about that already on a previous video, but we're going to start right here. We're going to talk about what we see. This right here, I like this. And the reason why I like this is because it's got a really shallow top to it. So these are really good feeding tables. Kind of the same thing you see out here. This point comes out quite a ways, right? It's 8 foot on top. And then on here, this one's even juicier. It actually breaks down down here. I don't even know what that would be, 13 foot. So you're going from 8 foot to 13 foot. So you got a little 5 foot break there. Then you have this little 12 to 13 foot hump that maybe they go back down to when it gets a little bit warmer, before they go way deep. So, or maybe they come up here to feed and they hang out down here in the cooler water, 29 to 30 foot. So this little point right here, this looks really good. Not just where I put the point, the waypoint, but also right here in this area. Again, you have another hump that's over here as well. So notice how the contours are different. I'm not showing just the standard blue lines. I'm actually using shading to show different areas on the map. So different shades of colors, or different colors have different shades and things like that. So I don't know, see if you guys like this. Hopefully it's not too rough on the eyes, but I do like how it really shows the creek channels and stuff like that, though. That's super cool. All right, so let's go back in here. Let's keep going down. Again, just another point, right? If we're just point hopping, I mean, obviously this is a great point. We just talked about that. Here's a nice hump that we talked about, but this is another good point, right? It just comes out. It's really slow and tapering. Those are just good points to fish on. They got good flats on them. This one right here as well. good flat tops on them that you can fish. And those aren't deep, those are only 8 foot. And likely some of these points that I'm marking, if you went back and you referenced it back to the Google Earth waypoints that we talked about, I bet some of these, especially these higher ones, are going to be the ones where we found the rocks on the top of them. Now also, if this lake, and I'm not sure if it does, most lakes do, but if this lake has shell beds, and I'm not sure if you have shell beds or not, but these are perfect places for shell beds as well because they're high points in the middle of a bunch of deeper water. So basically the shells will wash up here and kind of get stuck here as they're moving down through the current and stuff like that. So just something to think about. So some pretty good points right there. Obviously, if I pull it back, you'll see that's a really good point. And really, you could go on, you could fish this point too. I mean, if these point things are rolling, you just stay on the points, stay off the tips of these points. Now these aren't as good. This one's pretty good. This one's maybe not as good. It's a little bit steeper, but there could be times when this kind of a point is better than the points with the flat tops. So it really just all depends on the seasons and stuff like that, but hopefully we're getting you started on what you want to look for, right? These are key points, especially the ones with the flat tops. Those are the ones that I have the most success on. Now, as we move a little bit further down here, of course, again, we've got points galore, so you could fish a ton of points. But again, I'm looking for those ones that have the little bit of shallower top to them, or if they're closer to like a creek bed or a creek channel or have a really sharp drop, I like those as well. So let's take a look at this right in here because this kind of gives a little bit of everything, right? This is a long tapering point. And the thing, if you look at it, if we're back here, let's say that we're looking for spawning fish, right? So if we're looking for spawning fish, we're going to get in the backs of these coves and we're going to look usually on the northern coves. If they face east, if they face north and east, or north and west, that's really good. North and east is even better because basically it protects them from all that cold wind that comes from that direction. So anywhere up in here, these are going to be good spawning areas, right? Hopefully you guys agree with me. Even these down here that are on the south side, they're still good spawning areas because they're protected from the wind and things like that. So if that is a good spawning area, then you know that the points coming out of those are going to be great points to find fish on, and that's what this is going to be right here. This is going to be a great place for them to come in the fall when they push all the shad and the bait fish up into here. Actually, I don't know if you guys have shad. I think you guys had the other kind. Lose my name, but I'll come back to it in a second. But anyways, you'll push that stuff back in there, all those bait fish and things like that. When that happens, you'll find them back in there. You'll also find them pushing those bait fish up on top of these big long points, and so those are definitely going to be areas to look at. Plus you've got that pre-spawn post-spawn thing going on 90% time of the year, so just a great point to look at. I think I've wore that one out. Let's keep looking at some other ones. We've also got a pretty good ledge down here. If you look at this, it's pretty flat, but then it drops super quick down to 27 feet, so maybe possibly you might have some sort of a ledge or something like that there. I'm not too hot on that one. I like this one a little bit better though, because if you look at this one, it comes out sharp. I mean, right here, you're in not very much water at all. You're in 4 foot right here. And then within just a few yards, you're in 15 foot. So you've got a really good break here, a nice little inside turn going on there as well. That just looks really cool. You know, one of the things that I really like about this topography that I have on here on this Navionics too, is I can see the ridges. And you can't usually see the ridges with just regular contours. And so you're like, what are you talking about, ridges? Well, check this out, guys. Like right in here, obviously, you know, I put these points in here before I changed this. And so I'll have to show you guys the settings so you guys can use this. But this right here, that is like a ridge line that I was not able to see before. You got another one right in here. I mean, that's some cool stuff that you just can't see. When I was talking to you guys about this one popped out at me. I was like, well, dang, that's actually a pretty decent little point that comes up a pretty decent little hump right there. But you would never really notice it if you were just looking at it from a regular contour map. So this kind of gives you that 3D feel. So hopefully you guys are seeing that as well. So as we go through this, kind of keep an eye on that and look for those types of places. Those ditches and those ridges can be good. Like this could be a good ditch right here. See how it gets really, really deep right in here? And then this is a place that, I mean, 90% of people aren't going to look. So these could be some good spots to look at. So that could be a really good drain right there. You got another one right here with this kind of looks like a ridge, and maybe that's the side of the ridge. This actually looks like a drain because it's deep, coming off deep off both sides. And then right here, you have a point that comes out here that is not that obvious to the naked eye or just looking at it from a contour perspective. But when you add in all this extra stuff, it becomes pretty obvious there's a pretty good point there, and you could find some fish there as well. And again, if you do, I mean, what a great place to find fish, somewhere kind of off the beaten path. All right, so let's keep moving down. I didn't see too much in here. I mean, a lot of that stuff's going to look the same. So again, if you're looking for points, you just want to run points, you can just run all of these. There wasn't anything back in here that really stuck out to me, but when I did get over in here, I did notice this little flat that was over here. And this flat stuck out to me because it was one of the few, you know, all the rest of them are just kind of these rounded points, and there's tons of them. But this one has a nice little flat top that comes off the top of it. So a really good little feeding table here. And if you look here, there's a little point here too that comes out, has a pretty good drop as well. So something to look at. All right, so let's keep moving on up. See what else we can find in here. As I move, I'm going to pull back and show you guys where I'm at. This is the cove that we went in, and we're kind of working our way back out of the cove now. But as we get in here, a couple more points to look at in a hump. So again, this is another one of those points I was talking about. I'm looking for those flatter tops. If I can find the flatter tops, I personally seem to have more success finding those. Again, here's another good long extending point that's coming out. That could be a really good point as well. And then a little hump right here. And this is so cool, the shading, because you can see the breaks so much easier now. You know there's a big sharp break right here on the side of this hump. There's also a big sharp break right here in this area of the hump. And on this one, this point has pretty sharp breaks on both sides of it. So some really cool looking stuff. Let's keep moving up. Let's see what else we can find here off of this point. Now as we come up, we're getting off the main point, right, that we went into. There is like a little island or something like that going on here. Maybe this is a little pond and maybe a little break or something like that. Now, obviously, if you're shallow water fishing, you could get up in here. These looks like some pretty cool looking little places. But fishing on the outside of this could be good as well, because you do have that little shallow top that's right there, 5 to 6 feet. They could be right there on the outside edge of that very easily. And then over here, they could be off this main lake point for sure. I mean, main lake point, big flat top. I don't think you could ask for much more when you're talking that kind of stuff. Now, as we move back in here, I didn't see, oops, sorry about that. Didn't see too much back in that little arm. But of course, I can't mark everything, because if I did, it would take us 10,000 years to go through this. So we're going to kind of go through that little pocket there. I just want to point out a couple things in here, just to, in case you want to go back here and take a look at this, because this thing does look interesting. But this right here, notice that little point that comes out right there? That could be a juicy little spot, right? It just, the way that it sticks out. And then here, you got like this underwater point that comes out at 9 foot. You got a good break over here to 18 foot. So this isn't a bad place to go look for fish. It's just, I didn't see anything back there that really jumped out at me to say, hey, come here for offshore. But now when we get back out here towards the main lake, these points right here, these main lake points, I love these points. I love to fish these kind of points. This is where you're going to find a lot of your brush piles and rock piles and stuff like that. And to me, it's just it's a better place to go find offshore fish. Those secondary points and things like that, you can definitely find fish there. And a lot of times it's a timing thing. But for the most part of the year, you can catch these fish on these main lake points. It's like they're almost there year round. Hell, they might be, and I just I just don't know it. So looking out here as we go over here and we get off this main lake point, look at these long extended points. These things just look so good. And then if they're not out here deep, you can roll up here into the shallow area and get up here in 5 foot of water and have no problems at all. Again, if we're looking at the contours there, I mean, look how dark the contours are off the side of this hump. So pretty much you're going from 3 or 4 foot, maybe 5 foot to 9 foot, and then 9 foot basically straight down to like 30 foot. So inside this little bend right here could be really good. And then of course up on top of that point could be good as well. Let's keep going down. Let's take a little bit more looks at this other point that's down here. This is kind of the same thing, right? It has that nice shallow top on it, big flat to go fish. Definitely a good place to go and try to find some. Now let's pull back out of there. We've already covered this cove, right? We went down and we covered that in there. We covered the coves that are in there. So now we're going to work our way over to this point that's right here. Now the whole time that I'm doing this, I'm paying pretty close attention to this right here. And if you want to know what that is, that's your main creek channel or your main river channel running through the lake. And the reason why I'm paying close attention to it is because that's like I don't know what your main highway there is in Virginia or North Carolina, but to us here in Dallas, that'd be like, you know, running down I-20 or I-30, which are some of the major interstates that run into DFW. That's like where all the people are going to be. So in the fishing world, that's where a lot of your fish are going to be using that to travel. And so anytime you're doing these breakdowns or you're looking for offshore stuff, you want to pay really, really close attention. Anytime you see a channel like that, if you see it touching something or running into something or stopping on something or a hump that's close by it or something like that, where it's not, you know, hopefully you're not out there fishing in 120 foot of water, but if you can find something in, 25, 35 foot or less, that could be a really productive area. So let's keep an eye on this creek channel or this river channel as we go through this. And you can see here as I come down off this point, we're going to start getting into some areas that are fairly close to it. So we'll keep an eye on it. All right, so let's zoom back in here. Let's go back up to this point real quick. Let's take a look at it first. Love this point again. Same type thing, guys. I know I'm beating a dead drum here, but this lake has a ton of it. But these flat points with these flat tops, main lake points like that, those are just good. Now, there's that river channel, right? It's not too far from here. So you've got these points that are not that far off of that river channel. That river channel is in 73 foot of water. But these points, they're more up in 8, 9, 10 foot of water and they break down. But these points look good. I like this one better than any other ones around. And I bet you guys can guess why I'm going to say. So I'm not even going to say it, but you can see it there. Now there is a spot here that just like popped out to me, and I think it's because of this new contour thing that I think you guys need to go take a look at. So this waypoint won't be on the card, but if you're watching the video, you'll see it because we just realized that it's here. Hopefully you guys can see it. It's kind of sticking out like a sore thumb, to me at least, but right here, you have a hump at about 33 foot of water. So good time to go out here and check this thing out in the wintertime and in the summertime. Right now it's June 19th, so it's getting to be that time of year where they're going to get out there pretty deep, and that is a good looking place. You've even got a little ledge out here closer towards the river channel. That's going to be super, super deep, but that hump could be a productive little hump. You may want to go look at that if you're out there in this area. Let's keep moving on down. We'll come down off this point, right? Came down off the point. We talked about that hump that was out there. Let's go ahead and talk about these little points that are out here and kind of these underwater humps that are out here. So this point, again, comes out, good flat top. You've got a hump that's out here too that you could check out. You've got another, really two humps, probably sometimes almost an island that's out here. I got a feeling there may have been some rock in these areas too. These are the types of areas that you would find the rock and stuff. These are also the types of areas that you can find those shell beds if you have shell beds on your lake. Now, the inside of this, kind of where this saddle is, those can be really good spots too. So even though you're scanning the tops or fishing the tops and, fishing where the big breaks are and stuff like that, don't forget to go fish the in-between. If you have two humps like this, or if you have an island that's not connected totally, but it's pretty close to the land, that in-between spot right here is what we call the saddle. That saddle can be some of the most productive water to fish when you find areas like this. Let's keep moving. Let's see what else we find. We're going to move on down a little bit. We're going to come down inside of this cove. Again, you know what we're looking for. We're looking for those longer points that stick out, that have a little bit of a feeding table. This is a good one. Going to be a little bit deeper than some of the stuff that really we've talked about. So when we get out here, we're getting in 14, 15 foot of water. But notice how you got a pretty big break. Once you get past 15, it starts dropping pretty fast. So this is going to be another good little point to look at. That one might not be as obvious as a point. If people are just scanning over the map, they might skip over that one. So that one might not be as pressured as some of this other stuff. You've also got some pretty good underwater humps that are out here. You can see this one right here. This one looks pretty good as well. As we move on down, really didn't see too much in here. Obviously, again, I can't mark everything, but as I go down here, the one area that I did like was right down in here, and I just like this point. And again, it's because it's really close to a lot of spawning stuff, right? You got a big flat back here that they probably spawn in. They probably come back up in here and spawn in these little pockets. And this point just sets up perfect to me. It's like the last point of deeper water. When I say deeper, I'm talking like 15, 20 foot. It's the last point of deeper water before they get into the really shallow flats. And those are just really good points to look at. Again, you know, I'm more of a main lake point guy, but when they start getting back in the backs of those coves, those secondary points can just be great places to look as well. So we're going to come out of this cove or this pocket, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it a cove because this thing's bigger than most lakes we have here in Texas, just looking at this little cove. But coming out here again, look at this nice point. Real good point right there. Now this one, most people are going to come up here and fish this point like it's out here. But it looks like the juicy part of this point is more inside, out this way, in like 20, 23 foot of water. And then as we get a little bit further up in here, we're going to get over here off this main lake point. And again, same type thing, guys, looking at those feeding tables. We've got some pretty good stuff here. We got some humps. We got a little saddle going on in there. Nice hump that comes way out. That point comes way out and actually has some humps on top of it, I guess you could say. Just a great area, a great spot to go look at and see what you can locate there. Moving on down, we're talking more feeding tables, more long extended points, right? Another one there. This one's kind of similar. This one actually shows that it has rock on it. Now, both of these are, if you remember us talking about it, we talked about that river channel, right? We're paying close attention to that river channel. These are the two closest points to the river channels that we got. So these could be great spots. And there's really another spot in here too that I didn't mark, and that's going to be just right here, right? Another really good point. Now this one's not as close to this river channel as these two are. These two are really close to it, but that could still be a productive point. I would put money that these are going to be really good ones though, because just the way that they're located and the way that they're set up against that river channel, it's going to bring stuff to this area and close to this area. There's going to be some current in this area and stuff like that. That's just going to make it just set up really good and more than likely going to be a higher percentage area to go look at. So I'm going to back out and just show you guys again where we were, right? We started way the heck up there, and where we were at just now, we were following that river channel down. I'm probably going to lose myself here as well on where those points were, but we followed ourselves down. Here's where that river channel was, right in here. And that is those 2 points right in there. So I haven't talked about it much on the video, but we do have all of these waypoints plus the Google Earth waypoints out on our site, simplisticfishing.com. So make sure you go check that out. Kerr Lake in your area is really, or Bugs Island is really the main lake that we focused on so far, but we do have several others in your area that we are working on, so stay tuned. I'm going to show a couple more of these waypoints, probably spend about 3 more minutes, and then we'll cut this thing off. Let's go ahead and go on down. Let's talk about a few more of these points. Another good one there, right? Don't need to explain it. This one looks good, right? It's fairly close also to that river channel, so love it. This looks like a feeding frenzy right there in the fall time off of that point. Let's keep moving down. Let's go ahead and we'll cover this spot down here, and then we'll finish this video right out here so we don't get confused on where to start next time. So let's go ahead and go into this cove, and going in here, instead of repeating myself, I'm just going to show you some of these points, and I'm sure you can relate to them. But flat tops, right? Now this one is different than a lot of the stuff that we've talked about. Look at the break, the inside break that this one has off the side of this point. So you kind of get like this rounded point, but then you get a really sharp break on this side. And so that looks juicy. Also down in here, I didn't mark it, but this could be a good little point to look at. These big, flatter, rounded points can be good at some points in time too. Going on down, there's just a few more spots down in here that I wanted to show you. This point kind of sticks out further than the rest of them. Also has that flat top and has some serious break going on right out the outside of it. And then you come in here, this is more the rounded point, but I like this. Again, it's kind of the last point that you get to before they go back into that whole spawning area. So good little secondary point for them to set up on, feed on, stuff like that. And it's fairly narrow in here, right? There's not that much room between the two shorelines. So that can be good as well, a nice little pinch point. Moving on up, we're just looking for those particular points where we can see that, you know, to me, I'm just trying to vision those nice flatter areas where the fish can come up and feed and go back down, or they can hide on the front and let it come over the top of them, or hide on the back and let it come to them. All kinds of different ways they can set up. But those are the types of places I'm looking at. This is the same type thing here, big long point. If you fish enough of those with a Carolina rig or a swim bait or a jig, you're gonna catch some fish, I guarantee you. So let's go ahead, that takes us back out to this point. Let's go ahead and stop right there. We'll start on this waypoint right here next time we come back. And what I want to do is I'm going to see if I can share my settings with you here. If not, we'll, I guess that'll be the end of the video, but let me go ahead and change. Well, it looks like I completely jinxed myself when I said that. Went over to show you guys the settings and epic failure. So let's try this again. This is the joys of doing a video that lasts this long, and it's pretty much live while I'm recording it, so I can't really edit as I go. I'm not that fancy yet. But anyways, let's go in and look at these settings. Now I did change the settings a little bit since that video. Notice on the video when if I zoom in here, we had the like the purple line that was highlighted on the shoreline, and we had the red as well. I had some of my old shadings that were still in there, and so that's what was giving it the color. But when I took those off, it actually shades it automatically with this relief shading. So I've taken all of that off now. I really like this view, and like I said, one of the main things I like about it the most is just how I can see the river channels and things like that. They just pop big time. Like right here, this roadbed really pops, or whatever that is. So let's go ahead and let's show you guys what I did here. I went up to menu, I went in here to map options, and then from map options, I like to leave on sonar charts, because sonar charts actually gives me those contour lines that you see here, these contour lines, and so I really like that. If I switch that over to nautical charts, you'll notice I kind of lose those contour lines. I get a few of them, but they're not very defined. So I can't really figure out the whole nautical versus sonar chart. Maybe nautical's it's just easier to read. It doesn't have as much, I don't know, detail. So anyways, I go over, I click sonar chart, and that's going to give me all those good depth lines. And then down here, what I used to use is basically no overlay. So if I do no overlay and I pull this back down here, you'll see what it used to look like. That's basically what I used to use, and then I would do some highlighting to kind of highlight it and color it in. Well, instead of doing the highlighting, now you can go over here and click relief shading, and when you do that, you'll notice here it gives you this really cool look to it. Now it's got lots of different options that are in here, and of course I know that's not what this video is about, but just want to kind of show you guys. It's got satellite imagery, it's got this sonar imagery that I've checked out as well. You know, at least on this lake, I don't see any benefit to using this sonar imagery. It kind of looks like basically what we were looking at earlier with the relief shading, but it doesn't pop as much to me. So I'm sure this sonar thing will come in handy at some point in time, but for me right now, I think I'm just going to stick with that relief shading. That gives me the best, and the sonar chart, that gives me really good highlights. I can see what I'm fishing around, and hopefully you guys enjoy it too. So anyways, guys, really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Hopefully you've gone out and checked out all of the other lake breakdowns we've done for Kerr Reservoir or Bugs Island. We've got a lot of them out there. We'll continue to do them as we move forward. So until next time, I hope you catch your baby. Take it easy.